you're trying to graph cosecant of x, the strategy that Newton suggests is to first think of the graph of y equals for sine of x. Sine of, well, it's not just x, it's more complicated, but think about cosecant just being replaced with sine, because sine and cosecant are reciprocals. We'll be able to grab the reciprocal graph pretty easily once we have the graph of sine going. So to graph this, let's start with the what do we call that? The midline. Let's start with the midline. We're down to -3 on the y-axis, so this is going to be our midline. Let's see what else. The amplitude might be good to note. The amplitude is 4, so that means we go up 1, 2, 3, 4 from the midline. We go down 1, 2, 3, 4 from the midline. So -7. So it's between -7 and 1 on the y-axis, and it keeps fluctuating. And what else can we say about this graph? We got the midline, we got the amplitude. Let's do the period next. The period of a sine graph is 2 pi divided by the absolute value of b, which is 2 in this case. So if you plug 2 in there, the period is going to be pi. So this thing should repeat itself every pi units. But it has a phase shift. It's shifted pi over 4 units to the right. And that's kind of opposite of what we're thinking, so just remember, with phase shift, if it's minus pi over 4, you actually go pi over 4 units to the right. Okay, I think we have everything to make our graph now. I'm running out of colors, though. So this is our starting dot right here on the midline. Because remember, the graph of y equals sine of x. That's what we're thinking about. That graph starts on the midline, goes up to the top of the sine wave, down to the bottom, then comes back to the midline. So we're going to start on our midline at pi over 4 units to the right of the y-axis. And then let's mark out where we're going to start repeating ourselves. So we should start repeating ourselves at 5 pi over 4, because the period is pi. Pi over 4 plus pi, that's pi over 4 plus 4 pi over 4, that makes 5 pi over 4. So this is where we should be back to the start. We can make another dot to note. And then we just need to go to the top of the amplitude, top of the sine wave, bottom of the sine wave. I can make a better graph than that. Then we should be back to where we started. Okay, and so if you wanted some points to gauge how things are going, this is pi over 4 on the x-axis, and this is -3 on the y-axis. Actually, let's hold off on that. Sorry, I forgot. We're not doing sine, though, for this, right? We're doing cosecant. So there's actually one last step. We've got the rough sketch of what sine is. So the graph of cosecant, we're going to use out of colors. Let's go with pink. That's a better pink. We're going to use the graph of sine to help us identify what the graph of cosecant is going to be. I went to desmos.com/calculator. I typed in the graph of cosecant and sine so we can see what's happening. Sine is just contained between the cosecant function, right? Cosecant function keeps having these vertical asymptotes that happen, but they meet together at the peak and at the bottom of that sine wave. So we can use that to help us sketch the graph of cosecant. Okay, so you can use those points that we have. This point here is 1/4 of the way through the sine function, right? So that means it's pi over 2 on the x-axis. I'll show you how I did that in my head real quick. Because if this is 1 pi in distance, right? So 1/4 of a pi is pi over 4. And if you do pi over 4 plus pi over 4, then this is pi over 2 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. And then to get this point down here, it's the same logic. Take 5 pi over 4, back it up 1/4. This is pi on the x, -7 on the y. And so we know our graph of cosecant should look something like this. Should touch there. Okay, so hopefully that's enough points to make your graph. I definitely recommend desmos.com/calculator. Let me move this so you can see it. I'll make it nice and big. Okay, use that to help you guide your final answer, because I think, yeah, with Newton, you're going to have to click on these like blue dots and black dots and make sure that they're actually touching at the right spot. So when you click on this blue dot, if we've done it right, it should say pi over 2 comma 1.